my optics!
Ho, ho, ho! Happy Christmas and welcome to a very special episode 23 of AARGH My Optics, a podcast where adults discuss, overanalyse and generally take a kid's toy and media franchise a little too seriously. Usually that of the Transformers. And today we are discussing quite possibly the most influential piece of Transformers media ever created. And not just that, it's Christmas!
Woo!
Sorta.
Oh.
And to celebrate, we've got the whole gang together. I am your festive host, Orion Ghia, and with me, around the virtual table, are the returning guest hosts, Michael Quintesson, hello.
Hello.
Hi. Virtual Amy, say hello.
Ho, ho, ho.
Galactosh.
Hello.
Hello. And of course, my long-suffering co-host, Virtual Dave. Say hello, Virtual Dave.
Hello, hello. Merry Christmas.
Yes, it's definitely Christmas. It's not November. Welcome to the AARGH My Optics Christmas Party. And what better way to enjoy the festive season than watching and commenting on the cartoon that kicked off Transformers for many, that of Transformers Arrival From Cybertron, best known to those not growing up in the UK in the 80s as More Than Meets the Eye Parts 1, 2 and 3. So as we all know, the Transformers toy line, retrospectively referred to as Generation 1, launched in 1984, accompanied by a comic book and a TV series as part of a nefarious and incredibly effective three-pronged attack by Hasbro on the kids of the time and to empty their parents' wallets. On September the 17th, 1984, the very first episode of the now legendary cartoon, produced by Marvel and Sombo Productions and animated by Toei Animation, aired in the good old US of A. The first part of a three-part miniseries that kicked off the whole damn thing. Now here in the UK, unless you were lucky enough to have satellite or cable TV at home, which was pretty rare to be honest, you most likely didn't get to experience it until 2 years later when our saviours, Video Gems, released all 3 episodes on a VHS titled Arrival from Cybertron. So, let's ease into this by discussing our experience of this sacred artefact. Who wants to start? Don't all put your hand up at once.
Well, for me, it was one Christmas morning, waking up and unwrapping a present from Santa, which was a VHS copy that said Arrival from Cybertron on it. At this point, I only had one little tiny Transformer. I had gears. And that was my entire knowledge of Transformers at that point, because I don't think Wackaday had started broadcasting it yet.
Very likely, yeah.
And so that was it. I sat in front of... I knew I had a toy of it. Now I had a video of it. And then I had to wait for my parents to let me use the VHS player to watch it.
And did you watch it on Christmas Day?
Probably not. No, my parents. I probably had to wait a couple of days.
How about you, Amy?
My first experience of it was watching it yesterday.
I thought as much.
Yeah. Virtual Dave has been getting me slowly into the Transformers franchise, but in a bit of a funny order, I think.
Well, he dragged you along to TF Nation, didn't he? So
yeah,
it was a
yeah,
trial
that's
by
what I'm
fire
saying.
for sure.
That was definitely
It's
one of my...
cosplay next.
That was one of my first forays into the fandom, was just being headfirst into the convention.
Brave, very brave. So, Dave, what was your first experience of these 3 episodes, this mini-series, as it were?
I can't remember when I watched More Than Meets the Eye specifically, but I definitely saw Transformers episodes on VHS as well. I couldn't tell you which episode it was, but it was like it's one of those... Well, I'm sure you guys would know about it. It's like one of those tapes where we'd have multiple different cartoons on it, and Transformers was just one of them.
Yeah. I think that now I've seen stuff like this. You'd get maybe you get a G.I. Joe episode or a Thundercats.
Yeah, there was all sorts of different cartoons on it, and Transformers was one of them. It was something that was given to me, and I never had the case, so I couldn't tell you much more about it. But I remember watching that at a very young age, and that had one of the Transformers episodes. And I didn't watch More Than Meets the Eye until I bought the DVDs many years later, in that steel box set you could get from HMV.
Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah.
So basically, for you, it was just the first 3 episodes of season 1, and that was it, really. You moved on to episode 4.
Yeah, that was it. It was it was a random episode or 2 I watched, and probably didn't think much of it because it wasn't until much later when I really started to get into Transformers. But yeah, that's my introduction.
So, well, Michael, how about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I also would have seen it on VHS on Video Gems range. And I basically, I've no idea when I first saw this. Like, it feels like something I've just has always been in existence. And I think it's probably almost certainly the first, like, Transformers cartoon or bit of media that I saw. I think. I also can't remember if I had any toys before I saw this. I think probably I did have 1 or 2. But it was very much like I never owned it. You could rent it from the local video shops. Me and my brother used to just get it out quite often and sort of relive the exciting story we're about to discuss.
Yeah. My experience is more similar to that of Michael and Galactosh. We had the VHS. I'd have no idea when we got the VHS. It was just there. Like, it's just one of the many cartoon VHSs we had in the house with me and my 2 brothers. I reckon we probably still have the VHS somewhere. I reckon my brother, who is the Vidi printer who makes the outro music for this podcast, I think he's probably got it because he is well into his videos. But I mean, it was just... I've seen it so many times that it's like etched into my subconscious. I mean, I rewatched it the other day, and I was like, I know it beat by beat, pretty much.
I sort of had a similar thing where, I mean, I probably haven't seen it in over 20 years. And I was just still like, when I actually watched it for this, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this bit. They start building a spaceship. Rumble smashes the ground.
Exactly.
About this.
Yeah, I know what bit of incidental music is going to start at what point.
I've got that one sting from that episode stuck in my head because I'd forgotten about it. The other bit goes... Da-da-da, da-da-da.
Well, there's the famous insignia twirling. Na 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 na.
King!
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sting. There's like one of the themes in it sort of reminds me. It feels like it's like like a hard-boiled cop like piece of music or something. And it's got like it's got like saxophones in it. I was just like, this just doesn't feel like very sci-fi. It just sort of feels more like it could be like Dick Tracy. A Dick Tracy cartoon would have this music. But then, like, I remember I saw the G.I. Joe movie years and years ago. Or maybe I saw some of the cartoon and I realised that they'd actually just used some of the same bits of music for the Transformers. There's one that's got a very like military beat. It's like
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
Oh, that's from I was like, that's from G.I. Joe. That's why it sounds like a military march.
Yeah, they did reuse some of the stuff from G.I. Joe. I think it's the same composer. Orion is correct. The background music was composed by Robert J. Walsh, who did indeed work on the G.I. Joe cartoon. Many of his pieces from G.I. Joe were reused in Transformers, as well as new pieces composed specifically for the Transformers. I probably would have got some toys before seeing it. I didn't know that it came out 2 years after the toy line, like as in on VHS, so that means it came out the same year as the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, that's weird.
But I suppose I didn't see the movie till a few years after it came out on VHS anyway, so...
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole VHS, it was almost like quite a new thing in itself. So they didn't get stuff out on a tight schedule, that was going to be out in like sort of 8 months after it was released on TV or cinema. It would have been like...
I definitely went to the cinema to see the movie.
Did you? I think you might be one of the only people who did.
Yeah, I mean, as we discussed on our last year's kind of Christmas episode, which was about the movie... I didn't go to see it at the cinema. I went to see Care Bears the movie, weirdly, but I didn't go to see Transformers the movie.
I saw that as well.
God knows why. So you're the only one who went to see it at the cinema. So congrats.
Yeah, I definitely remember it. The toys were definitely out because the kid who sat in front of me just kept reeling off which one he had. And that really vexed me.
And then he probably got very sad that they were all being killed.
I think his mum was more sad than he was. Just saw the potential for more toys to buy.
Yeah, it's like, I see what they're doing here.
This kid apparently had all of them. By the way he was rattling them off, he had all these ones that I'm going, blaster, you've got a blaster.
No one had a blaster.
How did you get that?
Yeah, so I think this was some sport child. And I'm sitting there going, I've got Gears. Where's Gears in this film? What do you mean he's not in this film?
You're lucky he wasn't in it, or he would have been murdered with the rest of them.
No, instead he was just murdered in the background.
Yeah, Braun bought it during that movie, didn't he? So, at this point, obviously being shot in the arm just kills you instantly. Whereas previously, as we were discussing in Arrival from Cybertron, being shot doesn't seem to be much of a problem.
No.
Walk it off.
Yeah, exactly.
My optics!
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Arrival from Cybertron. How about, Dave, what are your thoughts on Arrival from Cybertron? And maybe you could give us roughly your take on the plot. I always enjoy your takes on plots.
Oh dear. Well, at first, when you approached me about doing this episode, I was a little confused about what you were talking about, because Arrival from Cybertron is just not how I know it. And it's, if anything, it feels like something from one of the later shows. Those words is not something I associate with G1. It's always been more than meets the eye to me. But yes, it's how it all kicks off, and the 3 episodes, the little mini arc, explains everything you need to know about Transformers, how they end up on Earth, their interaction with humans, what the Decepticons' goal are while they're there, and, what different things you can shove into an empty cube to make energy. Apparently anything. Yeah, that's it. It's the foundation that really set in stone not only the characters, but like the personality of the characters, sometimes the special abilities the characters have,
that they don't always have.
Yes.
It's just really interesting, especially the stuff like the Autobots flying and how that was just only in this, really, and it kind of just gets forgotten about in the next episode afterwards.
Well, I was reading that when they made these episodes, they hadn't really set in stone the whole idea that Autobots didn't fly and Decepticons did. But they then edited the episode so there was less Autobot flying in it because...
I suppose it's a pilot episode, really, isn't it? So they have made a few sort of changes to, the setup and the ideas, like by the time they go into full production with the cartoon, I suppose.
Yeah.
I forgot about the whole Prime needs the jetpack in the last episode. Like, they already forget that he can fly at the end of the arc.
Yeah.
I mean, I explain that by he needs the jetpack so he can fly as fast as a space cruiser.
Okay, fair enough.
I would go along with that. That's reasonable.
Because there is a point where Ironhide and I think it's Bluestreak chase the Decepticons flying, and they say something like, "Oh, we're much slower than they are."
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay.
But to be honest though, what it doesn't explain though is why, spoilers, Mirage has to use a parachute.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. I think Mirage himself possibly flies earlier in the story.
But yeah, I mean, it all starts with the intro, which I think is a classic, absolutely perfect, fantastic music.
Well, you say about the intro, so it's one thing that got me, because I hadn't seen it in years until I watched it again last night. Why, when Wheeljack and Bumblebee get ambushed by some Decepticons just sort of hanging around on the end of a road, so it looks like they're having a fag, do they go, "Oh no, this is bad, we better stop, I'm going to put my shields up"? Then they go, "Oh look, there they are," they fire at them, and then their response to get out of it is, "Oh well, we'll just drive at them."
Yeah.
Why didn't they just drive at them in the first place?
Just got to try a few things.
They tried getting out and getting a fire extinguisher out.
Yep.
And then just ended up doing exactly the same thing that they were doing before they stopped.
Yeah. I mean, you do have to suspend your disbelief quite a lot throughout the whole 3 episodes, to be honest.
It's just that really took me out of it.
I love that Bumblebee transformed and got out. Well, he got out of Wheeljack, and he shot the wrong way. Like he got out and he was they're over there.
Yeah, he shot in 2 different directions, I think. Didn't he?
Oh, that's just American shooting.
Yeah.
I think it's quite clever because if you're going to have Optimus Prime make as many mistakes as he does in the series, then you're going to have to make his comrades make even bigger mistakes in contrast so that you can see why he's leader.
That's a very good
Valid
point.
point.
He makes quite a lot of mistakes, but it's not sort of sold as like, oh, he's new to leadership. It's more just like, this is just what he's like. He's going to try some like got off the cuff schemes.
Like,
But at least he doesn't drive at his enemies to escape them.
No.
Well, probably did at one point.
He will at some point, I'm sure.
I think he's done stuff like that as well.
well, he did decide to drive up to a mine where he knows there's a bomb about to go off,
Yeah.
and then just park outside while they're doing stealth.
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little
Yeah.
bit here.
I think we've got plenty of time to talk about that bomb.
We'll get on to it. Let's talk about part 1 first.
Okay.
You've got like 3 parts, and they're kind of distinct in a way. There's different bits to each one. Like I noticed that part 1 is very much kind of the exposition, explaining who the Autobots and Decepticons are, what Cybertron is, and why the war's going on, why they have to leave Cybertron, which is that they're running out of resources, basically.
Yeah.
Very, very, very pertinent to modern day. This is what we're going to have to do.
Yeah, we're going to have to build an ark and fly out into space and look for energy.
And then steal it from the locals.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. You could see people doing that.
So you've got like Bumblebee and Wheeljack scavenging for energy, and then they start throwing in kind of all these space jargon. So you know that they're aliens because they say things like Quartex and Megamile and crazy stuff like that.
They're all still very car related, though.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they talk about drive plates and
My axle, my rear axle.
Exactly.
Yeah, like Mega Miles. It's like, I would think if it was scaled for Cybertron, they should be a lot smaller than an Earth mile. Because I'd think 1 Mega Mile would possibly go 10 times around the whole planet.
Especially since I assume they transform into much larger vehicles than they do on Earth because there's room for Transformers to sit inside them.
Well, Bumblebee's little.
Yeah. But they've all got cockpits, Yes. But it's like, well, why? Who's going to sit in the cockpit?
Actually, there's a few I've got a few gripes I want to raise at this point.
Go ahead.
These are more like things that annoyed me when I was like 7 years old that still kind of annoy me when I think about them. One is, I was always annoyed that the early Ranger Transformers had little opening hatches where you could, in theory, sit little people, but there were no little people.
Yeah.
And that bugged me. It bugged the hell out of me back then. Went to the extent of trying to put Zoids guys in there and stuff like that.
Oh, I did that.
They fit perfectly. Yeah.
Obviously, I later found out that this was because it came from a different toy range. So the Cybertron stuff, it's like I always really liked this Cybertron intro. It was just quite an exciting like sci-fi setting to start with, but it annoyed me, and it still seems sort of irritating that when they have their Cybertron vehicle modes, but when they change to robots, they've got like Earth plane wings and sort of the front of a normal truck. And again, at the time, I was like, I don't really know like why this is, but obviously it's that they just didn't want to do more design work on this relatively quick turnaround.
Yep. No, I that's in my notes too.
So we should be grateful for what we got.
Exactly. I think they're like, well, we've done the character models. We're not going to do second character models just for the first 5 minutes of the episode.
But think of the toys.
Yeah.
They could sell them.
But Galactosh, those toys didn't exist, and at the time they were just borrowing toys from old lines. They weren't designing their own.
They had no forward thinking. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I also think, like, having rewatched this, I'm like, this does not like date very well. I think it dates much, much worse than the movie. It seems incredibly clunky compared to like a modern like kids cartoon, but they just didn't have the time. I think they just did these things really, really fast. Basically, apparently it took 4 months to make an episode, whereas now it's more like a year or so they would spend on like a single episode from like writing to I think in a modern cartoon they would spend like a lot longer. And I guess they just have maybe they have a bit more money for it. I don't know. Just the schedule has changed, but apparently they just had to do these quite fast, and it's why like later on I noticed that like there was a scene where you see Prowl from behind and he's got Bumblebee's head.
Yeah. Yeah, there's loads of miscoloration.
That would happen now.
Loads of animation there as well.
And there's people saying other people's lines.
Yes.
Oh.
There's a great bit in the first episode where they've taken off. The Autobots take off in the Ark to go and get more energy, and obviously, well, not obviously, but the Decepticons know this because Laserbeak was spying on them, and they set off after them in their own ship, and they board their ship. And the bit where they are boarding the ship, Prime shouts, "Prepare for battle!" And then he shouts, "Attack! Attack!" in Megatron's voice.
Yeah.
They shoot the scene twice. It's just Prime pointing, and he comes back in.
Yes, and it's repeated too. Yeah, it's there's a lot of animation errors and a lot of it was made pretty quickly, I think. But yeah, I mean, so that all that happens, then they crash on what is obviously Earth.
Before that, though, if they're a race of technologically superior alien robots, why did they not notice two massive asteroids about to collide just outside of Cybertron?
Maybe the Viewtrex was faulty.
Yep.
I suppose that would explain everything, but you know,
They didn't have enough power for their radar.
Yeah, maybe they were conserving energy, so they didn't bother with that. But yeah, I mean, there's a bit where Prowl just weirdly goes, "Viewtrex report," and you're like, "What's a Viewtrex?" Okay, fine.
Is it just the window?
But yeah, they crash land on Earth and lie dormant for 4 million years, which seems like a heck of a long time, to be honest.
Yeah, I sort of noticed this a bit this time, and I thought, I mean, I wonder if anyone's got a view on this, but like, what actual story purpose does the 4 million year jump serve? It feels like pretty arbitrary. Like, they could have just crashed in a remote place and like just started doing the same stuff they did anyway.
That's a very good question.
the Mandela effect for me from when I was a kid. I remember as a kid there were dinosaurs, and then 4 million years later, and there's no dinosaurs. But I watched it again. There aren't dinosaurs there.
I feel like I remember dinosaurs.
There weren't dinosaurs there in the version I saw.
Was there more than one version of this?
Maybe we're confusing the comic version.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
That is always possible. I think I've done that in a few places, actually, more of which later.
Yeah. When they leave Cybertron, I think Megatron says to Shockwave to, keep things as they are on Cybertron. And he does a very good job, because 4 million years later, it looks no different.
Yeah.
Yes, but I've always wondered, is Shockwave now a little crazy? He's been on his own for 4 million years, just getting his little dustpan and brush out, clearing it up around the place, going,
Yeah.
everything's fine.
It's just been polishing Cybertron with a little rag for 4 million years. And he seems like exactly the same, like this hasn't bothered him at all.
Because they make it sound like he's literally the only person they've left there. Like, you're the only Decepticon here,
Yeah.
and all the Autobots have gone, so you're here on your own.
But there's a bit near the end where where Megatron says something like, we can now go back and conquer Cybertron, and I thought, but there's no one there except like one guy who already works for you.
Shockwave has literally conquered it on his own.
Or is there? I mean, are we meant to think that there are loads more Transformers there, but we just don't see them because of like budget restrictions?
Yeah,
So,
I think that...
what's the official version here?
I'm not sure, but I think there must be, because they tend to get new guys appearing, and I think they're coming from Cybertron, a lot of them. Well, some of them get built on Earth, but not all of them.
Sometimes they get built, but sometimes they sort of seem to come from Cybertron, and sometimes they're just there.
Yeah.
And sometimes they've been there before them as well. Like, isn't Jetfire just found in the ice?
Yeah, but definitely within these 3 episodes, the impression is given that all the Autobots are on the Ark, and only Shockwave is left behind, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bit of retconning later, I think, maybe.
No, sure. I mean, I think it's not that clear. I think there's room for retconning.
And retconning there indeed is. Season 2 episode The Search for Alpha Trion reveals that Elita 1 and 5 more female Autobots remained on Cybertron and are secretly stealing Shockwave's energon. However, Shockwave still appears to be holding down the fort more or less on his own, and is only assisted by weird non-transforming, non-sentient Sentinel robots that look like flying ovens. A flashback informs us that Elita and her team wanted to leave on the Ark with her boyfriend Optimus Prime, but he tells her it's too dangerous for a woman and that she should stay at home or something. Then some missiles hit the launch pad, and in typical Optimus Prime style, he assumes she's been killed without bothering to check. Otherwise, Cybertron seems totally deserted. Megatron even has to send a team led by Starscream to assist Shockwave, suggesting that he has no Decepticon subordinates of his own.
Although you have to keep in mind that 4 million years might not be a long time for Transformers. Like, it could just be a week for them.
It could be just like a mega year.
That's fair.
Yeah,
It's unclear. That's very unclear. Like how they feel about that. Like they don't really discuss it. Just sort of go with it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of to establish that time is meaningless to them, to make them that bit more unhuman and scary.
They seem in a pretty much of a hurry for everything, though.
they're embracing our culture.
Yeah. They don't go, oh, I'm just going to go and think about this for a couple of million years, and then we'll get on with things.
I forgot to bring up the fact that Soundwave decides to hide himself as a strangely robot-looking structure on the side of the road.
Yeah, it's a bit. That's a coincidence, isn't it? That like they've got a little sort of bit of roadwork stuff that just looks a lot like Soundwave down his neck.
He's essentially a traffic light.
It's a traffic light, yeah.
Yeah, is that what he is in Cybertron?
Yeah.
Also, like, why would he have cassette tapes on Cybertron?
Data discs.
Yeah. I mean, of all the Transformers, he is probably one of the most dated ones, purely because of his alt mode being so unknown of now. Like, most people don't...
Yeah.
I mean, a tape deck, it's not a thing people have anymore.
Oh, I think that was smart, because people love retro nowadays. Like, it's very sellable.
Well, yeah, I don't think they were thinking that at the time, though.
No, that was cutting edge in 1984.
So yeah, we're crash landed, and there's an eruption because they crash landed into the side of a dormant volcano, because why not?
Reasons.
Yeah. and there's an eruption. Mount St. Helens erupts, and it basically causes it basically reboots Teletran 1 somehow, and it comes online and decides to repair everybody.
Well, he only decides to repair what's his name, the purple plane one.
Skywarp.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, repairs Skywarp, and then Skywarp starts dragging all of the Decepticons under the repair beam, as you would.
Yep.
Repair.
Explore.
And it does one of my favourite things in Transformers, is that it mistakes vehicles for the dominant life form on the planet, and therefore makes them transform into vehicles, obviously. Imagine if it had got it right.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Like, how would that be? 'Cause, I mean, you can get the animals don't, they don't actually look like animals, but they have been like weird.
Beast Wars!
Yeah, but not in this. I mean, there's like Laserbeak. I think there's even a bit where they summon to use Laserbeak and they're like, "What in the hell is that?"
And then the Decepticons piss off in a vague and ambitious plan to conquer the universe.
Yeah, the first of a series of like unforced errors, but they could have just sort of smashed up the Autobots completely at that point, while this revival beam thing is still running.
This is literally the first point where Starscream has proved to be correct. Throughout this entire story, Starscream has many moments where it's like, well, if Megatron hadn't stopped him, he was doing the right thing. Right, Starscream's trying to go, let's blow an all to Kingdom Come, let's make sure they can't ever come back. And you go, no, leave them. And it's like, okay.
Doesn't Starscream also like disrupt the ship and knock one of them into the revival sort of Teletran beam?
Yeah.
Yeah, but imagine if it carried on shooting, that wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
No.
It's true, actually. Catalogue of errors.
Basically, the kind of earthquake that he causes by blowing up some rocks and stuff causes Prime to fall into the beam.
Yeah.
They could have turned that beam off.
They could have just blown up that beam.
Yeah.
Unless they've got a beam to fix the beam.
But yeah, that causes... And Prime gets reformatted, and when he gets up, he thanks the computer, which is very very nice of him.
He gives him a thumbs up.
He just goes,
Yeah.
thanks. And it's like da 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 da. I think it shows his character. Ineffectual.
But I think you're right. The thing with Starscream, it causes the conflict between him and Megatron, and it's one of the few Decepticons who really gets like his character come through in these early episodes of like his aspirations of being leader.
He's not shy about that even at all.
No,
It's just like, but I think you're, in a way, like I think you're kind of right in the. This is, of course, for children, and I think they're very broad strokes about who the characters, who they are, and their motivations. But like some of them do come through like fairly well. Like you definitely know what Starscream's about. But you've no doubt by the end of this that he dislikes Megatron and wants to be the leader.
Yeah, he makes no bones about it at all. He's constantly being insubordinate, and Megatron kind of puts up with it most of the time.
There's one point he shoots him in the arm.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, we're getting on with it now.
Yeah, pretty much.
I like when Megatron sends him off with Rumble and Soundwave, when they get to whatever refinery or whatever.
Yeah.
He has a little chat with Rumble about it, like, one day I'm going to lead and take over Megatron, and Rumble's like, what are you talking about, mate? You can't do that. Megatron's unbeatable.
Yes, they have that whole chat, and Starscream's like, well, I think that there's a bit where he sort of hints, he's like, I'll climb the greasy pole one day, I'll be leader. And it is true, but only for maybe 45 seconds. But nevertheless, actually correct.
So, I mean, Amy, what's your take on Starscream?
I think there's something going on there. I think he knows too much, and that's why Megatron won't get rid of him.
He does seem to keep him around when there really doesn't seem to be much reason.
He's like the Gavin Williamson of the Decepticons. He knows where the bodies are buried. Like he's a blunt instrument. Like he's a horrible person. Like, kind of got to keep him on side, otherwise it could be worse for you.
Yeah.
I've always seen the Starscream Megatron thing more as the monarch with his sort of uppity next of kin prince brother. It's like going, I should be in charge. Just because you were born before me doesn't mean I shouldn't be better. And it's like, one day I will get you.
Just because you transform into a distinct alt mode and I've got two other guys who look exactly like me, therefore I can't be boss. It's not fair, really. And he has got, for a leader, he's got a bit of a weird alt mode, to be honest, anyway. Like, turning into a handgun it's a strange choice.
Yes.
It's like that he let Starscream wield him
That's
as well.
the thing. You think about it. So the repair beam has gone out and found a gun and gone, this is perfect for Megatron. So he's looking for what's going to be perfectly good, out modes for them to transform into. Only in America would it be so numerous that he goes around and goes, well, there seems to be loads of guns everywhere. This will be perfect.
Yeah, these guns must be dominant life forms.
Yeah, that makes a bit less sense when you look at it that way.
So yeah, they basically piss off and start trying to steal energy so they can go back to Cybertron and take over. Soundwave does that thing where he's very lyrical and goes on about,
we can concentrate the energy into energon cubes and store them in the new space cruiser.
I get the impression that this is the first time they've ever thought of energon cubes, because they keep talking about testing. They're like, we're testing the energon cubes, and it's like they're working and stuff like this. So this is like a new thing they've done, but Soundwave can just make them out of his chest panel seemingly without much force.
He must have invented them whilst on Cybertron.
Yeah, something like that.
And you've just hit on another moment that Starscream's proved right, and yet Megatron's really unhappy about it. We've never tested these.
Testing.
How do we know they even work?
Oh, we're going to get to that because there's an amazing nonsensical double cross that happens at that point as well. So yeah, they piss off. They start building a base, and then
very
the Autobots,
quickly, actually, as well. Very quick
quickly,
work on this base.
Where are they getting all that purple metal from?
Well, I just think that actually they didn't leave Shockwave behind.
Because they build this thing really quick, and also Earth is pretty much all desert.
Yeah, but have also just found a massive power station.
Yeah, just there.
So they know something's around. So they just go up the road and build a huge structure in a place where they know things are around. But go, no one will notice this massive thing we're building. It'll be fine.
It's probably what the humans thought when they built the power station.
Yeah. And we encounter our first humans, who are Joe and another guy, who
their voices switch,
who Ravage kind of has a fight with for no real reason. Then they run away.
There's a bit where Ravage jumps on top of one of those guys, and I was surely he would definitely be crushed to death by this. They just sort of like tumble about like it's playing with a little kitten.
But aren't they working on an oil rig? I bet that they're really, really fit guys.
They're probably quite hardy, yeah.
Oh, that's later.
Yeah.
I think they're just wearing the same uniform. These people are just going to go, why has our power station stopped working?
Oh, pretty much everybody in every human in this wears wellies and a hard hat.
Yep.
It was the 80s.
Was that the look in the 80s? Yeah. Was that the look?
They're just driving a van around. I think they're meant to be maybe they're meant to be manning that little power station they find or something. And I
think it's something.
They've probably
like
just been called out because it's not working anymore. They're going to go, oh, we've got to go fix it. All right, come on.
So they sort of turn up and they're like, this shouldn't look like this. And then they get attacked by a robot panther
with missiles on its hips.
Yeah.
And they're not nearly as shocked by it as they really should be.
They've seen some things in the desert.
They sort of fill out a form about it for the management, but they don't do much else.
See, I like to think it's like the Nevada desert, and they got so used to people coming out of Vegas to bury bodies. It's like, right, we'll just say nothing. It's fine.
What happens in the desert stays in the desert.
Well, quite, yeah.
So the episode culminates in I don't know. I think Laserbeak finds the oil rig, doesn't he? And then the Decepticons go there to steal the oil.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is where we meet Spike and Sparkplug.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Father, bring your child to work day.
Yeah. I wrote this down in my notes. Like, Spike is a guy who works on the oil rig with his dad.
His dad, who seems to have also done a stint in a Burmese ruby mines.
Yes.
I feel like he's worked every
He's just a jobbing engineer, that's all.
Or oil rig job that you can do.
Anywhere where they let him wear his boots.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Actually, also, like, I think so. I kind of want to talk about Sparkplug specifically a bit, actually, because he annoys me. I always had it in my head that he was an auto mechanic, and he's called Sparkplug, which is a car part.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no. When I watched this, I was like, no, he just seems to be a guy that works on an oil rig and is called Sparkplug.
He's an engineer.
But then I put it all together, and it's like, I think in the comic, which was published before the cartoon came out, he was a mechanic.
He was.
But I don't know if they've repurposed the character or if they both started in the same place, but they sort of got to a point where they're like, well, we need a guy, this is about an oil rig, so Sparkplug is an oil rig guy, and that's how we introduce him. But, like, they kept his name as if he was a mechanic.
Yeah.
It's really, really confusing.
Yes, he was a mechanic in the comic book. He ran like a Sparkplug Autos or whatever it was called.
I think that also makes a lot of sense in terms of like introducing the characters that are robots that turn into automobiles. It's like a better like setup.
Nah, we don't need
characters. That. Like, everyone in this works on a power plant or an oil rig. And don't worry about it.
Like, we don't even find out his name until much later on when he goes, I'm Sparkplug. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of that. Well, to sell toys, there's a lot of people introducing themselves.
Oh, well, we get the roll call coming up.
Yes, yeah, I think that's
in the second episode.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah. So, yeah, we're on the oil rig, and then the Autobots just fly up to the oil rig to stop them. So here we go. This is the first time we see the Autobots flying, superhero style. And thus beginning the entire confusion over who can and can't fly.
Oh, as well, I forgot. I love how when the Decepticons land on the oil rig, all the humans like just throw little bits of metal at them, and like, they're just like, "Come on!" Well, just out of nowhere. They don't even know if they're good or bad. We'll just start throwing things at them.
Pick up bits of the oil rig and throw it at them for no reason. And I don't even know. I mean, how does the oil rig fall to pieces and everyone end up in the water?
Oh, explosions.
Megatron
They keep
shoots,
throwing bits of it around.
Yeah, that's probably it, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just very careless around it, and it breaks.
Because they've all landed on there. So you've got your Decepticons, your Autobots turn up, and they all have their fight. They're all having one-on-one fights. There is one bit, you can see it. They're all having a one-on-one fight. Bumblebee's just there. If he just turns slightly to his left, he shoots Megatron in the back of the head.
Yeah.
They're all just having one-on-one fights, even though it makes no sense because there's people just stood around going, right, well, if I fire at this one, I could take it out because they're having a one-on-one with that one. The whole thing could be over.
Yeah, considering they've been at war for hundreds of millions of years, they're all still pretty green at fighting.
I suppose if he had shot Megatron in the head, Megatron would have just had to lie down on the floor for like 6 seconds and then get up slightly and then like get on with his business.
So yeah, the Autobots instantly forget they can fly and start swimming.
Mm-hmm.
Huffer starts drowning.
Which seems much less plausible than them being able to fly even.
Yeah, yeah, because they must weigh tons. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the cliffhanger, isn't it? Like, I think the Decepticons piss off and leave the Autobots swimming around, and basically they have to save the humans, don't they? So
Yeah. Oh, and Huffer. They have to save Huffer as well because he's got his arm trapped in a bit of metal.
Yeah.
Right, which if he moved his arm backwards would just pull out of. But
and he can also fly.
But he hates fire and water. So he's in the right place.
My optics!
So episode 2, we have. I rewatched the episodes on YouTube, so it's the American version. You have a recap, which I don't think you had on the VHS.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah,
It maybe just ran as one thing, actually, didn't it?
I think it did.
It was like a continuous hour.
But the recap is at incredible speed. It just goes blah 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 blah. And now on the Transformers, and we move straight into the next bit, where the Autobots start saving the day. They can all fly again now. They've all remembered they can fly,
And they've all got magic hands.
Yes, yes. That's what I was going to say. This part is the part where we start revealing everyone's got magical special powers or tools
And strange energy weapons.
yeah, gadgets and stuff.
It's not like they've got Swiss army hands either, though. They've all got this one specific thing.
Yeah,
Because Jazz gets out his winch, which is the only thing he ever gets out
which
later.
he uses a lot. He uses it like every episode, pretty much. He uses it quite a lot of times, and he's the only guy who's got one.
Even though Hounds are... Yeah, anyway, don't worry. Hound should have one because he's a G.
He's got one on his chest. He could fire it out of his chest easily, you know, like he's got that hook and spool thing on the front of his chest.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do get like Trailbreaker has a force field, Jazz has that grapnel launcher, Hound uses holograms, Mirage can turn invisible.
Yep.
Gears has infrared, which just seems to be a red light, to be honest.
Starscream has something called the Null Ray.
Yes.
Which gets mentioned about 5 times, and I don't think you ever hear about it again after this.
Which seems to just be an on-off switch for machinery.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always turn things off. Like when he shoots like Megatron with it, it doesn't turn him off.
No.
Does it turn him on?
Well, Megatron's made of
Certain stuff.
stuff, yeah.
Well, it's because he had a weird shield when he shot him.
Oh yeah, didn't he? Yeah, he had a shield that came out of his arm for some reason. Yeah.
Well, it's to go with the mace.
Never used it again.
Yeah.
Yes, there was that arm shield. I mean, I was like, this is another thing that I was like, I had a mild obsession with as a child, was like the axe and ball and chain thing. That Prime and Megatron had in that fight. Because I think it was also the fact that you could take Prime's hands off, you could take the toy's hands off.
Yeah.
Made me imagine that there was some sort of axe I could get that was like out there somewhere in the world, and like slot into his arm. But
Yeah.
If you went and got He-Man's axe, it did fit.
Oh wow.
And those scenes with those energy weapons are responsible for the fact that every Optimus Prime and Megatron ever since has come with a laser axe, Energon axe and Energon mace. Indeed, it wasn't until the Japanese exclusive 2002 reissue that the original G1 Optimus Prime toy finally came with an Energon axe, fulfilling Michael Quintesson's childhood dream. However, since G1 nostalgia and slavish show accuracy kicked in, the number of primes, G1 or otherwise, that have carried an axe inspired by these scenes in More Than Meets the Eye Part 2 are so numerous we can't be bothered to count them.
But those weren't ever used in the I don't think they were used in the cartoon again after this.
No. That's it.
Yeah.
I think this was like, it's just like an aborted idea, really. Like they were like, okay, we're going to have these kind of, and there's also Starscream has an energy slingshot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He does, yeah.
Which is another, I think, a sort of another similar thing that they you know, these like weird sort of sci-fi energy weapons, but then they just they just dropped it.
Well, he uses that slingshot and he says something like, "Here's one Starscream's been saving for you."
He did say something like that. Yeah.
And it's like, one what? What is it?
It's a little energy conker.
And he only uses it that one time.
Mm-hmm.
That's because he'd been saving it for this moment.
Well, doesn't Wheelie end up with it in the movie?
Well, yes, it's true. It really
yeah,
does
no,
have
you're
a
right.
slingshot.
There is another one of these in the saga. Really. I don't know if Spike's diary is something they carry on with in the rest of the cartoon. It seems like I've seen sort of a memory of him writing this diary.
That's when he discovers Soundwave, and he's like, "Oh,
that is amazing!"
And he takes it inside.
That whole bit is amazing. It's just like, oh, I'm writing, I'm sitting around. Oh, look, there's a tape deck right out in the middle of all this with a strange symbol on the front. Wonder whose it is. I'll take it in with me. Oh, well, I'm not going to take it to show anyone and ask if it's theirs. I'm going to leave it right by the door on this little wall. And now I'm going to go and talk to some major plot points for the rest of the Transformers.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it right next to the the big computer full of
essentially
all the information.
Leaves it right next to a USB port.
This weird stuff I found in the desert belongs on the spaceship.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he is right next to like a port, isn't he? And he just kind of like hacks in. And that's it. And I think that's how they find the dam in the first place. They for some reason, Teletran 1 has loads of information on Earth.
Yeah.
From all that scanning around, you know. All that.
Explore.
Just been scanning for millions of years.
It's still going. It's still exploring. No one ever saw it finish and come back.
It's true, yeah. It's still flying around the place picking up information. By this point, it's worked out that humans are the dominant life form, but it's too late.
Okay, here's another question. Does the Ark have like its artificial gravity on it? Because otherwise you think they'd just all be like rolling around, rolling down the slope all the time. It's a funny angle it's launched in there.
I just assume they've just got magnetic feet.
What about Spike and Sparkplug?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What about Spike and Sparkplug, yeah.
They've worked on all rigs.
Magnetic wellies. I don't know.
Maybe the floor transformed to be level.
Talking of, did you notice, I think it's in their first episode, they've got like a shed.
Yes,
they've got the Ark is smashed into the side of that mountainside, and then there's this little outhouse that they have.
Never see that again.
Well, maybe it's because Teletran 1 hadn't fixed the toilets yet.
Yeah,
so they had to have an outhouse to drop off the Energon kids at the pool.
But yeah, so it seems we've already mentioned it. There's the famous dam top fight. They go to a hydroelectric plant, which they decide to basically, what's the word?
They're going to overpower it by getting more water through it by causing an earthquake?
Yeah, we're basically going to destroy it, but in the process get much more energy as a result.
Yeah, it's something. It's something that probably isn't a real thing.
It's not a geometry sound principle, I promise you.
There's a few things like that in this. Which we'll also talk about.
Yeah. So Rumble goes to the bottom of the river and starts a tidal wave, basically.
Yeah.
There's just a really cool shot of him walking into the water. It's like, other than his little moment to shine, it was really like that shot of him walking in, almost like you could hear like the Terminator music playing in the background.
He is actually an amazing character in this. He's like some New York hoodlum. Wearing dark glasses, who just swaggers around.
Yeah, he has a funny accent, doesn't
he? Hey!
You messed with the wrong guy. Like that kind of. He's that kind of guy.
You expect him to get out a sort of an energy flick knife any moment and just have someone up by the throat with it.
Yeah, he's like a little hoodlum.
Talking of gadgets, like they send Hound in the water after him, and Hound has like a shield that goes over his face.
Yes, because he needs oxygen to breathe by the sound of it.
But Rumble doesn't.
No, for some reason.
And Spike's really worried that Hound's going to drown.
So he goes in there
Yeah.
and almost kills himself. Which leads to the famous, very iffy looking,
God.
Yes.
you've almost flooded your engine scene.
Oh, and
yes.
the even more iffier,
Yeah.
so when Spike thanks Hound for "you saved my life," he goes, "We're even." And it's like, what are you even for?
Well, no, because Hound is trapped under a rock that Spike superhumanly picks up and throws to one
He
side.
picks up a rock from the side of Hound, and Hound decides then, I can push all the ones above me now.
Well, yeah.
Teamwork.
And while we're on Hound, why does he sound like Jimmy Stewart? Was that a purposeful choice?
I hadn't thought
But the
that.
whole thing, watching it all the way through it and going, where's he doing a James Stewart impression?
Well, they've all got really distinct personalities. I think that's one thing that's really quite good about it.
Yeah, the voice acting. I think I was saying earlier. I think it's dated badly. I think the voice acting was often pretty good in this, actually. Yeah, they are very. They do seem to have quite distinctive personalities, just even based on their sort of voices.
Yeah, I read a bit about this, and apparently the voice direction was done by a guy called Wally Burr, and apparently he was notorious for driving his performers to the limit.
Really?
So he was obviously really going for it, making sure everyone had a particular voice. Everyone has a different accent. Everyone's very distinct personality-wise and characterization. Like you get the idea that Mirage is just homesick, doesn't want to doesn't really want to be fighting at all, and then you've got Cliffjumper, who's just kind of a bit of a thug.
Cliffjumper is up for a scrap
Yeah, absolutely.
at all times.
And then you've got the kind of war veteran, kind of Ironhide, as it were. They're all kind of quite distinct, which I think is one of the strengths. I think is quite good.
Yeah,
Of the whole thing.
Especially Soundwave as well. Like, he's really the choice of having his voice with the auto-tune.
Yeah, memorable. Absolutely memorable.
Yeah, and I love that as a kid. I think that character. I think it was odd. It was like this one has a very robotic voice, and he sort of just feels like quite a different kind of character. It's all very distinct. It's probably one of the reasons it worked. Actually, I'd say.
Soundwave's very much a stoic menace. He doesn't say a lot. He's always just lurking in the background. Yeah, even watching it as a kid, I knew that if anyone's got Megatron's back, Soundwave's got it. He's like Maximilian in the dark in the black hole.
Well, I think he's just lying in wait. I think he's thinking, one day the top job will be mine.
No, he doesn't want it.
He
Come to the movie, he's the one who sort of sticks up for Megatron.
Yeah.
He does have a go. He does have a go later, doesn't he? Sort of.
No, he absolutely does want it. He defends Megatron until Megatron is thrown out the ship and then immediately decides he's in charge.
Is there ever a version? Does Soundwave ever become leader in some version of the story? Is there...
Yes, in the comic book, he's leader for a little while.
Yeah. And what does that look like?
It's all right.
Yeah, he's a bit inscrutable, Soundwave, isn't he? You don't really know like what he wants, what he values.
So we have a montage of the Decepticons' energy gathering.
Does anyone else think it's really weird that they decide to squish the cubes with their hand?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're going, all right, we've got an energon cube. How do we make it energon? Oh, squeeze.
Yeah, we just compress it.
It's like they wrote it backwards, isn't it? They're like, we made the cubes this size, and it's like, but they've got to carry them, and that's going to look awkward, so as soon as they squash them. So you could have just sort of gone back to the start and written it a bit differently.
I wonder if they had a toy design in the works where if you squished it, they would light up and be rainbow coloured for a while.
Well, that would be nice.
I would, yeah.
I don't think they thought about it that hard.
No.
I don't think 80s toy tech would have been up to that anyway.
Do you know what, though, actually? I did a little extra reading around some of the origin stuff, and I think that apparently the kind of energy war concept actually comes from the Diaclone story, apparently. That was also... They were also apparently in some sort of war over an energy source in what... I don't know anything about the story of Diaclone, but like...
Yeah.
That it feels like they might have lifted it from that, or sort of just... that it's like, that's a potential idea for this, and they stuck with it.
Yeah, well, I think Jim Shooter came up with the whole the kind of war over resources. That was his contribution to the entire mythology.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting how it's majority of G1, as far as I can remember, we only really see the Decepticons taking energy and then making energon cubes from it. I think we only see the Autobots having almost pods that they go in to re-energize in one episode. We don't really see how the Autobots get energy or how they charge up or if they have any energon or anything. It's really vague on the Autobot side.
Yeah.
Oh, they're in a volcano. They're going geothermal.
Maybe.
My optics!
So so then you have the ruby crystals of Burma. this mythical. Apparently, everybody knows they're the richest sourse of energy on the face of the earth.
I was going to say rubies. Yes, yeah, that's how they work.
Well, I think that for real, there are a lot of rubies in Burma, and it's in place that they've been mined from. But I mean, I think they did. There was some throwaway line, possibly, where Megatron's saying, the humans don't understand the energy potential of these.
Yeah.
But there's also a bit just before when they're discussing all this. Spike can read Cybertronian.
Yeah.
He's the one reading it off the screen. That's in weird characters.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I mean, Jazz is stood next to him, but it's not like Jazz is telling him. He's
reading it out to
isn't he?
Jazz.
Yeah.
He did a crash course.
So either,
which is very odd.
yeah, I was going to say he just learned it really quickly, or they just couldn't be bothered to animate it in English.
No. So they all. So then we've got the bit where Starscream tests the energon cubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does firing the cannon twice mean that they have to do a whole other mission?
Yeah. So you got Megatron going, we've now got to get more energy. So they decide that they're going to have to go to another place. That's where they come up with that weird plan.
What, because of the weird plan involving the rocket fuel stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, when they capture Ravage.
There's a lot of things about this that don't make... I think from this point, it really starts to unravel in terms of making any sense at all. It's a bunch of stuff which is just absolute, what the fuck things are happening.
Yeah, I think that's actually part 3. So I think we're
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're planning to go to Burma.
It ends in Burma.
They do go to Burma, which looks exactly like North America. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Which is unnecessary. I mean, I can understand that if they were doing it on location, but it's a cartoon, so could have just drawn a different backdrop.
They could have drawn a bit of jungle in the background.
Yeah.
And everyone gone, that's Burma.
I suppose it's the same considerations in a way. It's just could they, just do they want to draw another background? I guess not really.
Maybe they didn't want to upset anyone in Burma by blowing up such a location. They just wanted to have a generic mountain.
Clear if the writers know that Burma was a real place or not.
Yeah. Do you think they really cared? Did they think they really cared about the Burmese opinion on it at all? I'm not sure.
I don't think that's...
Considering they were calling it Burma.
I don't think they do.
No.
I'm going to say no.
But yeah, I mean, so the Decepticons go there to get the rubies, and they're in the mine, and the Autobots turn up outside, and this is where we get Wheeljack being a fucking nutter.
Yeah.
He just goes, we can use this bomb and blow them up in a place full of volatile energy crystals. Fine. Yeah.
Well, I feel that there's a lot of attempts to just cover people in rubble in this show, and it's one of the main things they do. Or even this is skipping ahead, but when they crash in the water later, everyone just assumes it's they're covered in some kind of stuff. They're not going to be able to get out of this, but they don't really check.
It's the best way to kill a bunch of Transformers is cover them in rubble. I mean, it hasn't always worked.
It's never worked.
In fact, it never does. But we're definitely going to stick with it.
But this is the 80s American TV. Look at the 80s. Yeah. No one's allowed to die. Otherwise, they can't show it to kids.
Mm-hmm. And Sparkplug, as I mentioned before, conveniently had worked in these mines before.
throwaway line. Yeah, I worked there.
Yeah.
It's easy. Just get in this way.
This is why I just think he's a jobbing engineer. He goes from job to job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sparkplug goes in with Bumblebee, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, good. It's not Spike.
No, it's Sparkplug.
I guess because he knows a bit about the mines,
He goes in on a rocky road with a landmine gently resting on his lap inside a giant robot.
Yeah. Why not?
As you do. And they drive about 5 foot up to the front of it, and then he gets out, and Bumblebee's just sort of nonchalantly carrying a big bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, but was like 30 seconds the only setting on this bomb? It seems a bit short.
It was 60 seconds, I believe.
Oh, okay, it's just
But yeah, they're still short. They're still pretty short.
Still very short.
Could have done an hour.
In fact, in part 3, Wheeljack then reveals that he lied about how long the bomb's fuse was. It was 59.99 seconds, to be exact. And it's like, well, we would have liked to have known that, you know.
Does that track in real time? It felt like longer than that to me.
Well, there was a week gap between episodes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, not for me, there wasn't.
But yeah, they get caught, don't they? And then it explodes with them inside.
And then once again, even for Sparkplug, like dropping rubble on him doesn't seem to do anything.
Well, worse than that is Prime's just idea of, well, I'm just going to transform, take the full rig up there, and let Rover go in.
Yeah.
Is he called Roller or Rover?
Roller.
That was me being wrong.
Yeah. Is that the only time we see Roller in the cartoon?
I think it might be.
Also, Prime uses his later. He uses his trailer gun thing as well.
It gets blown up.
Yeah, it does get blown up, and then I'm not sure we see that again either in any future media ever.
You definitely don't see that again.
You definitely do see that again. Both Roller and the combat deck do make a few more appearances over the 4 seasons of G1, but not many. Roller appears in a further 2 episodes, and the combat deck in 1 more than Roller. But these are so infrequent, Dave can be forgiven for forgetting. Then I think the cliffhanger is Prime tumbling down the mountain. Oh no!
Just rolling down the side of the mountain.
Yeah.
Having decided to go up there in the first place. Because Roller couldn't have gone from where he was.
No.
No.
He had to drive right up to the entrance.
Right to the entrance, which he knows there's a load of Decepticons in, and they're probably not expecting a massive truck to turn up to.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit unnecessary. Another one of those weird decisions that Prime makes. That
It is weird.
And then, spoilers, it blows up with everyone involved in there. What's he shout out? He shouts, "Roller!"
Yeah.
No fucks given for Sparkplug and Bumblebee, who he hasn't seen come out and knew took the bomb.
Yeah.
But his little tiny little scout robot that lives in his bottom.
That sounds like R2-D2.
Yeah.
He literally sounds like R2-D2. It's the R2-D2 sound clips being used.
Is it?
Well, they've stolen a lot of sound from here because they've stolen a lot from Battlestar Galactica. A lot of the lasers.
I've got a list here actually. I looked this up, and they extensively use the Star Wars sound effect library. They use the sound of the Death Star firing to destroy Alderaan. That's used for Skywarp and Thundercrack here when they're strafing Bumblebee and Wheeljack in the first scene. The training sphere above the in the Millennium Falcon, that's used for the Seekers sometimes. Luke's lightsaber hum is used when Soundwave is making energon cubes, etc., etc. TIE Fighter engine
I never
roar.
knew this.
Yeah, they're all in there.
I mean, I assume that's licensed out somehow. There must, when they do the sound design for these movies, they just all go in a big sort of like library.
Sound library.
Yeah, because they've used the Cylon noises, Cylon guns.
Yeah. There's Star Trek sliding door sound effects as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a hint of the sonic screwdriver when Wheeljack opens and closes his rear door. Apparently.
Oh.
I didn't notice that, but
No, I wouldn't have noticed that. That's probably sounded like all sorts of different ways through the many, many years of making that show.
And Roller's sounds are taken directly from R2-D2.
Weird that they license out something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was.
Maybe it's Ben Burt needed the money.
I can't imagine it was like kind of free to use. I don't know.
No, as far as all those noises were made by Ben Burt for Star Wars, so he would have owned them.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I've no idea how those rights work. I mean, this is actually this opens this. There's more questions than answers here really for me.
We need to ring up George and ask him.
Well, I know that this isn't the only example of other movies using Star Wars noises. So maybe that sound library was either free or fairly cheap to use. I don't know, because there's a lot of reuse of Star Wars noises in various movies. Having looked into this, it appears this sort of thing does happen a lot, and the reason is usually simply that it's cheaper to pay for pre-existing sound effects than create new ones. We imagine Sunbow and or Marvel Productions paid for the license and deployed these sound libraries liberally across all their productions.
1984, Star Wars was over.
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi probably hadn't made its budget up yet. So they're probably going, well, can we get some money back on this?
Yeah. They might not have even really thought people would be watching Star Wars like decades later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, we just made some sound effects. Like, fine, we'll just make a bit of extra cash by renting them out.
Yeah. So here's where we have the so Prime manages to, he's damaged and he has to transform, and he does it very slowly, but he's okay in the end.
I sort of like that, actually, that he struggles. Is there another bit where someone sort of struggles to transform a bit? And it's
Hound
sort of
does when he gets smashed up.
Yeah.
He's told, I can't transform.
When Hauler makes his one and only appearance in G1 and rescues him. Yeah, you're right. Hound does struggle to transform. He's just like, I think it's my my rear axle or something when he's in.
Yeah. Because this whole episode, they seem to be building up Hound to be a proper major character. It's very Hound heavy, the whole thing.
It is, actually. More than Bumblebee.
Yeah. And Mirage as well, I'd say.
But
then I don't remember Hound actually being in it that much after this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he is, but no, well, the thing is, the trouble with the cartoon is it's all about getting the new toys in, so...
Yeah, I know it's Autobot of the Week.
Yeah, characters get kind of pushed to the sidelines because they're not new anymore. So it's like, well, you've all bought Hound now, so we need you to concentrate on the aerial bots.
But they really make it feel very much like the chain of command is you've got Prime, Jazz is like a drill sergeant, and then Hound is like the special ops. And that's like the top tier of the Autobots.
Yeah.
Like Wheeljack, I always remember him coming up because he's the one who goes, and I've built this one for you.
Yeah, well, he's basically the mad doctor, isn't he? Or the mad mechanic.
Yeah.
But so Prime assumes that the Decepticons are finished because they're under rubble, as we previously discussed.
Which means game over.
Yep, they're done for.
Oh yeah. What about is it Huffer who comes in, helps Prime by taking the load of his trailer?
Oh yeah.
Which, made that every Huffer toy needed to be able to be compatible with Prime's trailer now.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Now everybody needs Huffer to be able to pull Prime's trailer in toy form. Because
it's like it's all this like I mean, even in the development, I think there's this sort of super throwaway ideas which have like people seemingly can't quite let go of. I suppose.
Absolutely.
It's like I think when they were putting the original toy line together, they were like, well, we'll combine. You know, it's like they're in different scales and stuff like this. And I think they were just like, well, we want to use all of these, so it doesn't matter, they just change size. And it's like, that's now something we're, completely stuck with forever.
Yeah. Well, it's because they went to that Tokyo Toy Fair and Hasbro just basically went, buy everything! Buy it all! and Takara had their two lines that were completely separate, Diaclone and Microman, Microchange. And they went, we'll just shove those together, and then we'll get some stuff from these guys and these guys as well. So there's lots of mismatching going on.
We'll nick this one while Robotech's not looking.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the Robotech one, it causes a lot of upset, doesn't it?
Robotech controversy.
Yeah.
But I suppose it was the microchange... I think it was the microchange line that had... I assume that in that, whatever continuity that was, those were tiny little robots.
Yes.
In that world, it's like that was a gun-sized robot, and then... when he turned into a robot, it was also that size. It was just like a little guy.
Yeah, they were 1-1 scale, basically.
Yeah, they were like 1-1 scale, and I think the Diaclone ones were also like somewhat like to a scale. It was sort of a bit more coherent, I think, in those lines.
Yeah.
In Hasbro sort of didn't really care. They were just like, but then it was also like hugely successful, and I think they then replaced those lines with Transformers in Japan as well. So
yeah, they did.
Who's to say who was right? I guess.
Well, those lines weren't doing very well in Japan at the time.
Was it sort of on the way down?
Yeah, because it had been going for a very, very long time, and they started with like kind of spaceships and stuff, and they'd only like moved into like realistic vehicles and so on later on, and realistic objects, because people had got bored of spaceships and so on. So in a way, those lines were kind of on their way out when Hasbro.
Yeah, and so maybe they were sort of a bit desperate to be like, maybe we can like hook this to an American company and get a bit more juice out of it. And like, boy, did they.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
My
optics! This is where we hatch the incredible, weird, crazy double-cross plan.
Okay.
As a first-time watcher, I found that confusing. And I had to...
Exactly.
I wasn't sure who was double-crossing who. And I WhatsApped Virtual Dave and said... Is he a spy for the Decepticons? And Dave said to me, what you have to remember is that the Autobots are always smarter than the Decepticons.
Are they, though?
So if you know that, then you understand.
Is that what I said?
Oh, sorry. I'm recontextualizing your answer. What is it? What did you mean?
I said the opposite. I said you're giving the Decepticons too much credit.
That's what I mean, is that you said that if you remember the Autobots are smarter, then you'll know who is double-crossing who.
This whole plan at the end is basically the finale to Blazing Saddles.
We're talking about the rocket fuel plan, right?
So yeah, maybe we should just go through what the plan is.
I think we could all do with a breakdown.
Yes,
I certainly could.
Yes, please.
Step 1.
Previously, the Autobots have captured Ravage.
Mm-hmm.
And they have him in a cage.
Yes.
They know that the Decepticons need to get more energy, one more amount of energy before they can take off. And Hound talks to Optimus about making basically a holographic jet fuel station.
Yeah.
As a kind of ruse.
He's like, I've got a plan. I can make a hologram any size.
And so then he accidentally on purpose mentions it in front of Ravage.
And then accidentally on purpose drops the key.
Yes. Which would make sense if it wasn't for the fact that when Ravage escapes, they all chase after Ravage. He's escaping, and when they come back, Hound says to Optimus Prime, "Oh no, he's escaped." And Prime goes, "Good, that was my plan all along." And he kind of goes, "Huh? What?"
Yeah, they all do.
So he wasn't... Is it that Prime just put the two most incompetent guys in charge of this to make it seem more realistic?
Who's going to drop the keys?
It's like, I know they'll drop the keys. They just always do.
Yeah.
It's because it wasn't Hound's plan. Hound just told him. He just reminded Prime, I can make holograms and big holograms of anything.
That's it. Yeah.
And then Prime goes, "Oh, I have a plan." And we don't hear what the plan is, so maybe
he doesn't tell Hound. Hound doesn't even know. So Hound is just a careless jailer. He just drops the key and just gets on with his life. And
tells Ravage a whole story about this base.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist because he hasn't made it yet. But he tells him as if it is something that actually exists.
Yeah, and then Prime just assumes Ravage would escape anyway. Doesn't fill Hound in on the plan at all.
So Hound didn't know?
No!
Oh, that's very confusing.
This ruse continues because they holographically create this jet fuel base, or whatever it is, to lure the Decepticons. And the Decepticons take the bait, heading to this fictional rocket base.
Where they're all dressed up in science clothes.
Where all the Autobots are dressed in lab coats.
The Autobots in lab coats. I think they're all the smaller Autobots, aren't they? It's like you're like bronzing people, and it's like.
But this is where it becomes the plot from Blazing Saddles. They build a fake town for the bad guys to come and invade.
Is that what
so
they
they
did?
can do a trap.
It feels quite farcical.
And then it turns into a
doesn't it?
musical number.
Well, that didn't go that way.
But then it turns out that the Decepticons are onto them. And all the Decepticons are just made out of junk.
Yeah, so 2 questions here. 1, how did the Decepticons know that it was a ruse? 2, what the fuck? Like, fake Decepticons they made, and how did they make them?
Well, they're Decepticons, aren't they?
But how come these fake Decepticons can fight to a certain extent?
They look completely realistic until the ruse was up, and then they just sort of fell apart.
I have the answers for your 2 questions.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
The Decepticons knew because they explained Hound's hologram ability, and Hound shows Ravage that he can make a fake Megatron in front of him, and then he goes, "I've got an idea," and he says he's going to go talk to Prime.
No, that does sort of add up a bit.
I think Ravage is actually quite smart, and I think he put 2 and 2 together and realised something's up about this.
It also doesn't help that the way it's depicted in the show, Hound makes the base with his hologram ability, and then the Decepticons are immediately there.
Yes, there too.
like it's almost like they watched him do it.
Yeah, maybe they did watch him do it.
And my theory on the disposable Decepticons is just that they're just the miscoloured Seekers that were in the background in the first episode that we never see again. But, let's...
Are these the first zombie Transformers then? Could we see it that way?
Pretty much. Yeah, I would say so.
It was so confused. I was just like, I don't know what's going on anymore.
It's so convoluted and it makes no sense.
It's like a little rug pull, but there's no hint before or really afterwards that this is a thing that's possible in this world.
So it's like a double cross or something, and the Decepticons are made of junk, and I think Megatron says something like, "Did you really think you could fool me by allowing Ravage to escape?" And really, the Optimus should respond, "Well, here's the embarrassing thing about that. We didn't. I forgot to tell the guys this plan."
They let him escape anyway.
And he genuinely escaped. So, and we really did try to stop him, and then he should shrug.
No.
And that would be...
It's like, look, at this point, even I'm not clear how this is how this is played out, but like, this is where we are.
So, meanwhile, the Decepticons attack the real rocket base. Although we weren't aware that there was a real rocket base, but there is.
No,
one.
it was sort of implied that it was a made-up rocket base.
They said that that rocket fuel is one thing they need. Like Soundwave
Did they
brings it up at
detect
one
it
point.
actually somehow? I think there maybe is something about this.
Because apparently rocket fuel has got the next best power to the red rubies of Burma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ovs.
There's like 4 things on this version of planet Earth. There's like oil rigs, ruby mines, rocket bases, and volcanoes. And that's actually a lot.
Dams.
No, you're right, there's dams, yeah. There's a lot of like power generation. This is really a story about, energy works, like hydroelectrics, and like the brave men that man those industries day in, day out.
This was just an early Captain Planet.
So yeah, they attack the real rocket base. The Autobots go to stop them. They do that running and transforming thing from the end credits in that scene, which is it's basically toy porn, isn't it? It's like here's what the toys are like. Here, that's what it's all about. They're all going to they all run and transform into their cars modes or whatever. But it turns out the Decepticons have all the power they need, and their space cruiser blasts off into space, and that's it. They're fucked.
Yeah, and someone says
that's it. And there were no more episodes of Transformers.
I think Sparkplug says you've tried everything. It's like you've done all you could be expected to do, Prime. Prime, like, I've got one more thing I can do.
Yeah, Sideswipe, give me your rocket pack. And Sideswipe's like, what rocket pack? Oh yeah, I've got a rocket pack. Here you go.
Oh yeah, I've been carrying this thing around all this entire story without realising.
And it was never seen or heard from again.
Another accessory that we don't really hear anything
Well,
about.
we do in the toys,
Yeah,
because
every toy.
now Prime has to come with a rocket pack all the time now.
Not even with Sideswipe, it comes with Prime.
Why doesn't Sideswipe come with a rocket pack?
Yeah, it comes with Prime. It doesn't come with Sideswipe, weirdly.
That is weird.
That's just
I don't like
rubbish.
that.
Yeah,
Can't they just do things right?
yeah. It's Sideswipe's rocket pack. It's not Prime's rocket pack. And also, he's rubbish at using it. He flies into space and he immediately gets shot down.
He's not used it before, has he?
Yeah.
It's sideswiped.
He's really clutching at straws at this point.
He makes no attempt to dodge the laser blast and just gets shot down.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he doesn't use his other flying ability to stop himself from crashing.
Yeah, he falls pretty hard. And everyone comes to his rescue, like, "You're right, Prime." Like, "Get off of me! I'm fine."
Meanwhile, Starscream decides this is the perfect moment to take over again.
Strike while the iron's hot.
Megatron has his guard down. He doesn't have his cannon on for some strange reason.
Yeah. So, and basically in the confusion, it turns out that Mirage is there, invisible, and wrecks the controls of the ship and makes it crash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yay, Mirage! He's the hero.
I mean,
And he just casually opens the door and jumps out
Yeah, with his parachute.
in
which
space.
is another accessory. Is there ever a toy of that parachute later in the...
I don't think there is.
No, that's the only one.
I feel like it could happen.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Honestly, if Takara ever make a masterpiece Mirage, which they've not done yet,
It'll come with
it's
that
coming with
parachute.
that.
Yeah. I think it's quite good that it's a different character that's not Prime.
Yeah, I do. I love that. That's one of my favourite things. I like
He
the
has
way that-
he has a bit of an arc, doesn't he? He's like, sorry, I mean, I know there's also the arc, but you know what I mean. Because I think there's some comments about how he doesn't like fighting, like he really just wants to go home. And then he kind of sorts it, at the end he comes up with the plan, seemingly behind Prime's back.
Yep.
It saves the day.
Does Prime actually do anything of consequence?
Not really. No. He's
Not a very good leader.
No,
he just seems to come up with some ideas and go, I want a battle group. All right, we're all going. Brilliant. I'm going to ask for volunteers. All right.
everyone volunteers.
Even the two little squishy people. They're coming. Brilliant. Let's do it.
Why not? I mean, they're fully fledged Autobots by this point. It's all fine. But yeah, so the Decepticons crash, and again, Prime assumes they're all dead.
I just love how Megatron is frantically screaming at this point when Mirage jumps out, and he's just like, "Stop him!" It's just, "Make it stop, Soundwave! Get control! What's going on? Steer the ship!"
Oh, he's ruined everything!
Yeah.
Fucking hell! Yeah,
Megatron is freaking out.
Because also, what is the big problem with letting them bugger off home?
because they take over Cybertron, which I guess is a bad thing.
But they left them all there.
Yeah.
But if they hadn't followed them to Earth, they would have left them all there in charge anyway.
That's a very good point, Galactosh.
Very, very good point.
But they took off in search of energy. They were going to come back.
Yeah, the Autobots were.
Yeah.
The Decepticons went off after the Autobots. So all that's happened is they've followed them, got enough energy to get back, and the Autobots are where they were going to go find energy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the Decepticons are back where they started, with exactly what they started, but, Shockwave's done a bit of spring clean on Cybertron while he was there.
Well, he hasn't got any energy either, I suppose.
I think they stockpiled a load of energy that's on the space cruiser, so that was going to allow them to take over Cybertron.
But but that's not what they said. They had just enough energy to get back.
They need to come back to get the rest of the ruby crystals. That's why they're going to come back to go back to Burma.
But but if they're going to stop them, then it's pointless. The whole thing is pointless.
It muddies the waters quite a lot that Megatron also seems to make various references to conquering the universe also. So it's sort of like, what is it he wants to do? I don't know. If he takes this energy back to Cybertron, he'll be able to make some other stuff happen that will allow him to. Maybe he's going to revive that planetary engines project.
As featured in a previous episode of AARGH My Optics.
Featured in a previous episode, yeah. Look it up, listeners.
But yeah, so that's essentially it. I think that's the end. So the governments of Earth, who have totally ignored the Transformers until now, give them all the energy they'll need to revitalise Cybertron. But it turns out the Decepticons are perfectly fucking fine, and that's it. We're going to go straight into a never-ending war that will go on for at least 4 seasons, and never really get properly resolved.
There's an incredible line towards the end of this story where Spike's diary says something like, the world governments all agreed to give Optimus Prime all the energy he needs to revive Cybertron. And then he says, I think it's the only time they've all agreed on something. That's an incredible little moment.
They've all agreed to get rid of these robots.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe that is actually what
They've
was
come and stole all our rubies. They're damaging our dams.
If that's the case, it doesn't work.
They've blown up a dam, they've blown up a power station, they've blown up an oil rig. We just want rid of them.
Yeah, that gets forgotten about, doesn't it? There's never an attempt for the Ark to take off in G1, is there? There's never the Autobots don't leave via a vehicle. They only go back via the space bridge or anything, isn't it? They don't.
I think it moves again. I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah, I mean, the space bridge is more of a Decepticon thing, isn't it?
No. But I just mean that they got all the energy from, the world leaders, but then what do they do with it? They obviously didn't leave. What
they didn't do much, yeah, you're right. They do fuck all with it.
Yes.
My optics!
And that's it. That's the whole mini-series. So I guess let's go around the table and see what people thought of it. I want to hear Amy's opinion first, because as you saw it for the first time just the other day, what did you think of More Than Meets the Eye parts 1 to 3?
Well, the first thing I noticed was that there were no female characters, and I was not born in the 80s, but I have heard that they used to kind of polarize the market quite a lot with toys. Like, you'd have boys' toys and girls' toys, and there was very little in between.
That's absolutely correct.
And yeah, I kind of just saw them, how they were thinking of toys throughout. Even to the point where I would start to make up stuff, like with the Energon, my Energon cubes idea, where they could turn it off and on again. And I think that the reason all the human characters have the same outfit on is so that they could sell a lot of very similar ones, and then you could use it to create a scene.
They never did, though. They never
sold a single one.
They never made humans.
It does feel like that.
Not until many, many years later.
Yeah, like years later in other
parties
ranges.
And,
maybe.
I mean, there have been a few spikes in exosuits, but like throughout the entire run of G1 from 1984 through to 1991, not one human, apart from like Headmasters, which are kind of human.
Headmaster Spike.
Yeah, Headmaster Spike was the first ever human in the line. But yeah, no, you'd think that they would make the little guys, but they never did.
I guess it's a good way of having kind of similar character models, and if you dress them all the same, you can kind of hide it a bit better. But then, I mean, that's more a thing with like 3D animation and stuff. Like, all the characters were drawn wearing the same outfit.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing? Oh, I've had a think about Sparkplug. I couldn't stop thinking about it after you brought it up, and I think the reason he's called Sparkplug is not because he works with spark plugs. I think that their oil rig / power plant probably has like fraternity rules for how nicknames are given. So I think he probably did something very embarrassing and despicable with the spark plug one night when they were drunk.
Yeah.
Maybe just really well known for putting forks into energy sockets.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it could be.
I think that we can probably like just accept that as a sort of new canon now.
I think so. Yeah, that makes more sense.
It's like a lot of guys like together, a lot of lonely nights, a lot of boredom.
There you go, confirmed.
That's what all rigs are all about.
A few spark plugs lying about, why not?
See how many?
I was impressed actually. They really didn't spoon feed things to you. Like even American adult television, I find that they're often recapping things, making sure that you know what's going on, even if you check in about 20 minutes into the program. But this, like, you had to watch from start to end to understand what was going on, which
And you still
I
didn't
feel
understand
like-
what was going on.
Yeah, there's a fine line between spoon feeding and simply explaining what's supposed to be, what the hell is supposed to be happening.
I suppose so, yeah. At one point, because I was confused when I watched them, and then I looked at some reviews online and found out that the Hub put the episodes out in a different order to when they were first screened.
Oh.
And I was really worried, and I texted Virtual Dave, like, have I watched the wrong ones? Like, because I thought that might account for why I didn't quite understand everything that was going on.
Yeah.
I think there were a few scenes cut which explained a few things here and there, but nothing major, nothing that would have fixed it. It is just a very... It rockets along at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
And doesn't really stop to tell you explain what's happening in certain cases.
Yeah, they had to cram a lot in there for that those episodes. It was just...
Well, they're only 22 minutes long each, and they have to say every single Transformers name about 4 times to make sure you know exactly which one they
Yeah,
are.
hopefully show them transforming.
So it doesn't leave a lot of room for plot, because otherwise you will not know what toy that is you've got to buy.
So what are your thoughts on it, Galactosh? You haven't watched it in years.
No, I honestly probably watched this as a kid, because I watched Transformers the movie religiously. Love it. It has given me a false impression of how good this was. I remember Arrival from Cybertron being brilliant. And it was like, the gateway to my Transformers fun. I look back on it of an adult brain, and it's just like, what? Like, there is a literal roll call where they just go, name a Transformer, watch them transform. All right, now we're going to go. So it's like the shopping list is done.
Yep.
And then things just happen for reasons. Might as well as be a wizard did it.
Yeah, it's like it does feel like they wrote like a coherent story, then like whittled it down into something that doesn't make sense.
And the two overwhelming things in it is I watched it now back as an adult, going, well, Starscream's right, Megatron. Listen to him. Everything he said is absolutely correct. You're building up all this energy, you don't know if it works. All right, maybe you shouldn't have wasted it by blowing up a mountain. But now you know it works. Brilliant. Autobots are just laying there. You never know, something might happen and bring them back.
Yeah,
blow them up.
That does imply that Megatron just assumed it was going to work and hadn't tested it. So if that's the case, I think Starscream's point was sort of fair enough, actually.
Everything Starscream says is fair enough. Megatron is just as competent as Optimus Prime, in that they will just hope it's going to work out.
Yeah.
I mean, Optimus Prime and the Autobots are just so reactive. They don't do any. They do very little stuff off their own back. They just do react to whatever's happening. No wonder they're losing the war.
In the movie, Prime is badass. He has got the greatest introduction out the entire film. Just comes in and goes, "Yeah, all right, I'm going to sort this." In this, it's like, what am I going to do? Well, I've got a plan. I ain't told anyone. That'll be fine. I'm just going to go rock up to a hole in the earth that I know a load of Decepticons in. 2 of my guys are in, so I can send my little bum guy in, and we're going to have a right round. And I know there's some explosives involved, but it's going to be fine.
He's very optimistic, isn't he?
Optimistic Prime.
It seems kind of impulsive. Like, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to try this. I'll just drive up there.
He's winging it. He's not a tactician. He's not a leader. He's just, I think it's just because he's slightly taller than the rest.
He is a little taller, yeah.
They've gone, you're in charge, Optimus. Why is that? Because your name's Optimus, it's Prime, and you're bigger than us. All right then, yeah, that's how it works. Their whole plan to leave and go to a different place seems to be so on the fly. It's like, well, are we ready yet? Yeah, kind of. Let's go then.
Isn't it just a bizarre kind of class system where the fewer characters that have the same model as you, the higher you are up in the hierarchy?
Pretty much.
I think that's a pretty good assessment of what. There is a lot of like discussion of Transformers like class systems in later versions of the story, but I mean, not in the, it's not consciously discussed in the 80s cartoon version.
I think it's kind of retconned on the basis of that, in a way. It's like...
yeah, to an extent. Yeah, it's sort of like you're a bit generic. Like...
Exactly.
Well, and also, the number of toys that appear... Sorry, characters that appear.
Both.
Do they ever appear again? Like, Reflector.
Yeah. How many reflectors are there?
There's 3 in that. There's 3 in that.
I'm sure there's 1 or 2, like... shots where you can see like 6 or 7 of them.
There is, yeah.
There probably is.
Yeah.
All in weird colours.
It's sort of like, is this a guy, or is this 3 guys that turn into a camera, or is it just a generic Decepticon kind of soldier, stormtrooper thing? The show is not sure.
No.
Yeah.
And there's just like background people.
Yeah.
Like, they do seem to have taken the entire Autobot army with them.
Yeah, there's more Autobots, aren't there? The Decepticons, there's maybe only about 8 of them.
Yeah, there's a lot less, isn't there? I suppose
they're massively outnumbered.
I suppose that's the good guy bias, isn't it? With a lot of stuff, they make a lot more good guys. Because the kids generally, especially in Japan, apparently prefer the good guys to the bad guys.
Because also, even on a plot's perspective, there should be fewer Decepticons. So all they've gone to do is work out where the Autobots are going. They're not expecting to crash and land with them.
Well, yeah, I think his plan is just to destroy them.
Destroy them, follow where they're going, destroy them, go back to where they were going. That's kind of his plan. But no, 4 million years later.
Yeah.
Shockwave rules the universe.
Well, rules Cybertron on his own.
We don't know, he might have expanded for a bit. It's 4 million years. He might have taken over the universe and lost the universe in that time and just been stuck back on Cybertron. No one's asked him his story.
No, it's true.
It's also 4 million years. He might have forgotten it. Because, he's around so much, he doesn't even bother to turn up in the movie, does he?
He is briefly in the movie, as Dave pointed out to me at one point when we were talking about the movie. And he went, oh yeah, Shockwave's there. And I'm like, is he? And he's like, yeah.
He is in the movie.
Yeah, but only for about 5 seconds.
There's a bit where like Cybertron's under attack and he's just going like, he's just sort of, you just see him like shuddering.
So that's because he's been on his own for 4 million years. He's probably a bit crazy.
Yeah, he was doing that anyway.
He's a hermit, essentially. He's been sat there on his own, basically just sort of like bent over looking with his hands stuck in something. Going, yeah, I'll look after this. Didn't realise it was going to be 4 million years.
Doesn't seem to faze him though, does it?
He can't be sane. Loneliness would have got to him.
Right, so that's your summarisation of the whole thing.
Yeah. I think it's best I stop before I break too many childhoods.
Well, Dave, what's your feeling on it now?
Well, it was interesting to look back at these 3 episodes in particular because, I mean, I have watched G1 episodes since I was younger, but not so early in season 1. Normally it's like season 2, season 3, where I might pop back and watch an episode. So watching these was, it highlighted a lot of problems with G1. I think even though this, encapsulates a lot of the tropes that get continued, or the characters, or the special abilities, all that kind of stems from this beginning, but also a lot of the weird errors, the weird mismatching of voices, like you pointed out. Like, it's such a flawed cartoon, and it's so a product of its time, but it's so fascinating watching it now after like the 40 years that it's been. Something in it though, even in all of its flaws, all of its issues, something about it really connected with people of the time and has stuck with people for so long. And it's so weird that, like, now, how the fandom is, or like how people view these characters, it's so muddled up with like accuracy to the show and how things are simplistic or things are crazy. When you look back at it, like, no one cared. It was not it was not viewed to be this thing that people should cherish or anything. It's
mad that something that's so vastly inconsistent and bad in places is held with such high regard.
It's incredible. It highlights a lot of the things about, you know, kids' TV at the time, and like how it was over influencing people in certain ways, of like advertising us to buy toys and whatnot.
Yeah.
So like you can see all the tropes. You can see how, like I said, with the roll call and everything, like, oh yeah, I've got to get them all. I've got to tick off the list.
They do an incredible job of like shoehorning a lot, pretty much the entire 1984 toy line into it.
Yeah, it's really weird to look back at it now that so much of stuff has happened since then, and reiterations and the evergreenness of those special 6 characters that they always pop back and visit.
Yeah,
it's really cool. I think it's a time capsule that maybe people should be a bit easier on. And maybe should go back and watch it if they had it in such high regard today.
Yeah, well, you know, it's all there. It's all there, free to watch on YouTube. Go ahead. So yeah, Michael, let's hear your overview.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think as like, and as I said before, I don't think I've seen this in over 20 years, and it's like, I think as a piece of entertainment, like, it stands up like pretty badly. It's not a great piece. You know, it's. And, you know, there are reasons for that. I think, as Dave says, it is a bit of a time capsule. I think against its peers at the time, it probably stands up okay. Like, there are a lot of these kind of toy cartoons, and this is probably like one of the better ones. And I think maybe the reason for that is that, you know, the story is reasonably incoherent, but like, I think they did do some work on making the characters sort of make some sense. And I guess also, if you look at the toys, like, they were quite invested in that side of it. They were like, it's almost like this was their idea to sell them. They were like, each one is going to have like a personality and be relatable. And, you know, you've got the tech spec stuff with the little character bios. And, you know, you do come out of this sort of knowing who these characters are fairly well, even if they don't follow through with all of it later.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's. You know, I guess I feel like, and I think it was also very, very popular at the time.
Yeah.
So I think, like, regardless of how it looks now, I think they did what they needed to do.
Yeah. And
I think based on that, it's kind of like a good product for the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to shock everyone, because I'm usually the negative Nancy when it comes to all this stuff. I think it's a really good setup for the whole show. Like, yes, it's nonsensical. It makes, very little sense in places. There's lots of kind of leaps of kind of logic that it's just mad. But it does a really good job of giving you the characters of all the initial toys. I mean, Decepticons a little bit less so, but then they're the Decepticons. They're the baddies. They can be treated more as kind of like, you know, random baddies. But the goodies, they all have pretty well-formed personalities, like, and they do spend at least a few, 30 seconds or so on each character, kind of giving you an idea of who they are. Much better than you'd expect, to be honest. I mean, you get the whole bit with, Ironhide when he gets injured, and when he basically goes off to take down the Decepticons all by himself. So you get an idea of his character, you get the idea of Mirage because of what he does. Hound. Loads of them get themselves fleshed out quite a lot.
Yeah,
with such a big cast as well.
Like, I guess they could almost certainly have made the story a bit more like possible to follow if they down on some of that stuff. It feels like that's what they prioritised. They're like, we want the characters to come through.
The thing is, look back on it. Like, 3 of us here can say it from the time.
Yeah,
we did follow it. So it did kind of work for the audience.
You can fill in the blanks, can't you? And I think you kind of have to with this this sort of era of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just looking back on it with 40 years of hindsight. At the time watching it, it made perfect sense to me. Never questioned it.
And I mean, it has a great voice cast. Like the voices are fantastic. The animation is shoddy as fuck in places, but the characters' voices and their characterization is done very, very well indeed. And you've got people who worked on this in the voice cast have been working in cartoons previously to that and ever since. There were some really big names in there.
When you've also got Scatman Crothers.
Yes, Scatman Crothers, yes, Jazz.
It was very famous from The Shining.
Yeah. And of course, Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, who do a fantastic job with the main guy, the main hero and the main villain. Even if the more I watch pretty much all Transformers media, the less I think Prime is a competent leader. He's still a very charismatic, a very likable character for a lot of people, and I think that's down to Peter Cullen.
I think his key scene in this is when some of the other Autobots are saying like, we don't, we're not fighters. We want to, we just sort of want to go home. And he's like, well, this isn't the world you're in. Like, you've got to rise to this. That's sort of what defines him, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like it's like this danger is real. We have to fight it. It's like that's who Prime is, I guess.
Good. Well, I suppose. Do we want to do the rating system?
Oh yeah,
wheelie to your favourite character from the movie. I don't know how. You've watched the movie, haven't you, Amy?
Yep.
Right. So, on a scale of Wheelie being the worst character in the movie to whomever you think's the best in the movie, that's debatable. Where would you place this? Or would you like me to come back to you later?
Yeah, I want to hear other people's choices
All right.
first. You don't want to say something too bold, when you're in the the presence of such fans.
Since Dave and I are old hats at this, Dave, what's your opinion?
I feel like I want to say the Dinobots. Is probably where I would rank this. No, not anyone in particular, but I feel like when Prime comes to save everyone in the movie, and he's like sends the Dinobots down, destroy Devastator, and they swoop down and they all look cool and heroic, and they transform and they just get clobbered on and the sludge gets like the stuffing kicked out of him. I feel like it's got its bits where it's like it's really positive, like it sets up a lot of stuff. Some bits of it look alright, and then there's other bits where it's just like eyes bulging and just brilliant baloney is going on and all that type of stuff. Like, I feel like it's a good starting point for the show, and it's a good way of introducing you to the characters.
Yeah,
and it sets up a lot, and it's a really solid arc. Like that's good beginning, middle, end.
That's almost word for word what mine is. I would say Soundwave.
Oh, right.
Because he's iconic, cool as fuck, but ultimately incredibly dated. And that's
all right.
Yes, that too. Yeah.
Michael, what about you?
Well, I actually think it's Optimus Prime, and I think it's specifically the Optimus Prime depicted in this version. He's pretty much making it up as he goes along, but he gets the job done, and he's ultimately like a good, likable guy.
Fair. Galactosh.
All right, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's Wreck-Gar.
Okay.
That is going on.
Because it's junk. It's crazy as hell, makes no sense, just fills up a bit of exposition and increases the roster of toys you can buy.
Oh, another fair summarization, to be honest, yeah. So now you've got your head around it, Amy. Have you got any thoughts?
I think the Star Wars opening crawl, because it has a lot of exposition, but it also blatantly stolen from Star Wars.
Yep, and they're stolen stuff from Star Wars in this too.
So. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, all All great ratings. Fantastic. I mean, I created this rating system way ages ago, and I wish I never had done. But we'll keep going.
Well, yeah, so you're stuck with it now.
Yeah. Well, it's getting late, and we all best get to bed before Father Christmas pays us a visit. So that's it for the AARGH My Optics Christmas party. It's been a blast, right? Wasn't it great having all of our guest hosts together for the first time? What are your thoughts on Arrival from Cybertron? Or on what we had to say about it? Please let us know in the comments and on social media. Find me at Ghia Orion and Orion_Ghia on Twitter and Instagram respectively. Dave, what are your social media handles?
You can always find me at VirtualDave26 on Instagram or Twitter.
Great. Let's go around the table and thank our wonderful guests. Virtual Amy, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Galactosh, long time no see. How are you doing?
Glad to be back. I hope everyone has a lovely Christmas and a happy New Year.
And Michael Quintesson, this is getting a bit of a habit. Thanks for coming along.
An absolute pleasure, and I hope to be back for the time when you force us to watch all of the Michael Bay films and talk about them.
Oh, I'm up for that.
Oh, well, that's an episode in the making. Absolutely. Right, well, don't forget that if you enjoyed this podcast, you can let us know by liking, subscribing, sharing, reviewing, etc., etc. We really appreciate that. Not only that, but if you want to show your appreciation with actual money, go to www.patreon.com/AARGHMyOptics. Don't forget the AA. Thanks for listening. Have a very Merry Christmas, and please join us next time on All Together Now.
Optics!
Ho, ho, ho.